You've been named as an executor for somebody's estate in their will, and you're not sure what you have to do. Well, let's talk about it. So first of all, we've traditionally always called them an executor or an executrix. Currently, they've changed the language in Alberta legislation, so we now call it a personal administrator or personal representative. It's the person who's going to be charged with dealing with the whole estate. Now, the person can be named, or in the case of an intestacy where someone just doesn't have a will, then they go through a different process. Instead of probate, we call it a letters of administration. But at the end of the day, we're going to name somebody who has to deal with everything, because without it, no one can. Now, keep in mind, until you get that stamp of approval from the courts that make you the executor or the personal representative, then you don't have a legal right to do things on behalf of the estate. As a no-charge service, if you're in the situation where you've been named as executor and you're just not sure if you have to do probate, give us a call, send us an email. We'll step you through it really quickly to find out if you have to. Sometimes, depending on the assets a person has, you don't even have to go through any complex or legal process. It's just a matter of winding up the estate. Either way, we're now going to go through the things as the executor, what your obligations are and what your duties are. So first, the role, initially you're going to work with the family and make all the funeral arrangements and that immediate stuff. People call us right away. My family member passed away yesterday, what do I do? And my advice is always take a step back, relax, not really relax, but grieve. Spend the time with your family. Make sure everybody's okay. That's the key part initially. There's nothing that has to be done immediately, legally. There are some things you have to pay attention to in a little bit. We'll talk about them. But for right away, it's more about the family and the loved ones to make sure everybody's okay. Once you've decided that, okay, I'm ready to do this, and we've got an estate that we have to go through probate, then you're going to have to deal with the assets. Primarily, that's going to encompass a couple of things. One is you're going to have to do an inventory of the assets. And then you're also going to have to make sure that they're secure. So for instance, if a person has a lot of tools in a work truck, you have to make sure that that truck's in a place where it's not going to get stolen and all the tools stolen. You want to make sure that everything's locked up, secure. If there's a worry about some family members entering the home and taking stuff, change the locks, whatever you need to do to secure everything. Once you have it all listed out and everything's inventoried, we're going to need that as the probate lawyers to make sure that we can make the application for probate. The next thing you're going to do, and probably part of the same time, is find the beneficiaries. Often if you're acting as an executor or a personal representative, your obligations and duties to find the beneficiaries is going to be easy because you know the people who have been named. Maybe there's a one-of unusual gift for someone that maybe you didn't know, a friend of a parents or something. However, most times it's pretty straightforward. Where it can get a little complex if someone, instead of naming their children in their will, just says, I give it to all my children. And every once in a while, we have surprise family members we didn't know about. So for the most part, this is an easy step. You just have to keep your mind open to things. The probate application you can do on your own, although most people find it much easier to hire a probate lawyer to do all the paperwork. It's a very frustrating process if you're doing it on your own because you're making applications. The circuit court can say, no, take it back, you got to fix this. You go, you bring it back to the courthouse, they send you away again. And I've had people who for a year and a half have gone back and forth and just finally said, I should have just brought it to the lawyer to begin with. It's up to you. We're happy to help. We're here to help and step you through the process. After that, there's going to be some specific things. If there's any minor beneficiaries to the estate, then you're going to have to make sure that their share is dealt with appropriately. Most times, the executor, as part of the executor's obligations and duties, is also going to be a trustee for minors. Not always, though. Sometimes people will name a different executor and a different trustee, and the trustee deals with the assets and manages them. If money is not going to go to someone until they're like 22, 25, or in little pieces over the years, then in the meantime, you're going to have to make sure that the money, if it's cash, is invested reasonably in a secure way that's the court will say reasonable is the status that you have to look for, but you're going to manage the estate and then give out money as it's needed. Sometimes it'll be needed for school, university, it might be used for daily living expenses in some cases. So you're going to look and work with the lawyer to make sure that you're distributing the assets held for minors in a reasonable manner. Last, sometimes there's legal claims. I remember as a kid seeing this sign that said, where there's a will, there's a lawsuit. We don't like that, we don't want that, but every once in a while, family members get into a dispute as to who gets what. If there's a dispute, then you're going to hire a litigation lawyer who's not paid by you personally, but is paid by the estate, and they're going to defend the estate to make sure that the wishes of the person who passed away are followed through right to the end. Last, your obligation is going to be to distribute all the assets to all the beneficiaries, and that process can take a little time or a longer time depending on how many assets there are and the nature of them. Obviously, it takes more time to sell a house than it does to liquidate money in a bank account, but that's going to be your last step. Remember, you're not alone. Every will, you're allowed to hire accountants, realtors, lawyers, all the people you need to form part of your team to make the process easier for you. It's a very emotional time, so it's a challenge to begin with. Don't feel like you have to do it all by yourself because you want to make sure it's done in a way that won't cause problems for you and your family.